Hey everyone, Amar Bashakra here, and probably one of the easiest ways to ruin any sort of peace of mind when you run a contracting business is by hiring someone that you probably should not have hired. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to reference check a carpenter. This actually works for any trade as well. And there's basically 7 questions that I use that you can use as well. The first question that I would ask, in what context did you work with this person? Like if you're hiring a person to be a carpenter and you ask the other person, what did you hire them for? And they would tell you, oh, they were just driving material for us. Already, you can kind of see the problem with that. And I want to give a huge shout out to Jeff Smart and his co-author. They wrote a book called Who? They use these questions when hiring CEOs. So the bar for this is actually quite high. The second one would be, what is the person's biggest strength? And the reason this is so important is because during the interview process, this would be a question you would ask always. So if you're not asking that, start asking that. And what that will reveal is how this person can maybe stand out on your team. Because we want to be able to lean into our people's strengths, and any of the weaknesses that they might have, we want to try to eliminate. So that is a exceptionally important question, because if you find in your interview and from their resume and from what they're telling you that one of their strengths is project management, and then you go talk to the previous employer and they're saying the same thing, well, guess what? It's probably true. Which then leads us into the next question, which is, what are this person's biggest areas for improvement? Now, notice how I'm not saying weakness. And the reason for that is one of the biggest dangers that you can run into with an interview like this is that the person that you're calling starts getting all cagey. And now they don't want to talk about certain things. To avoid that, we want to just create like a psychologically safe interaction. And by using the words area for improvement versus weakness, it will get the person to feel constantly comfortable sharing with you. Let's say in reality, the person that we're interviewing, we think is a good fit, but really, we don't know this yet, really in the last job, they actually were stealing some tools. They got caught stealing tools. And the other person doesn't want to out them for whatever reason. Maybe they made up for it or the person paid it back. So when you ask biggest area for improvement, the guy on the other side might be like, well, we liked Bob. Bob was a good guy. I guess I would say biggest area for improvement would be like his communication. Probably his communication skills. Okay, so you dig deeper. Communication, what do you mean by that? Well, there were times where Bob would be upset and he would kind of just take action in his own hands and not really run it by us. So, it's just important that we always kind of stay in sync. Okay, let's say you probe deeper and you ask even more questions. And they tell you, well, there was this one time where Bob, thought tools were his, but they really weren't. And, it ended up being cleared up. But there were some tools that he thought that he was kind of included in his job description that were not included. That caused some, just a little bit of a bump in the road. And if you're really tuning in, depending on the person, now maybe the person on the other side is getting, kind of nervous or whatever, this is where you can really strike the nail on the head and be like, okay, cool. Like, are you saying that like they potentially stole some equipment? And that's when the person would go, well, I wouldn't call it stealing because he did give us back, but it was something along those lines. That'd be a pretty big piece of information. So that's a very key part of the reference check. That brings me to the next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate that person's performance in that role? Let's say you've worked with some amazing people in your life. So if you're watching this, think of some person that you've worked with either in your company or a boss that you've worked with that you've had a great experience with. And somebody asks you that question, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. You would be excited to give this person a 9, an 8 at the very least, a 10 maybe. Oh my God, I worked with Bob. Bob was amazing. He's like, this guy really looks out for you. You know, the person is just like energetic. They just can't wait to tell you stuff. On the other side, you ask them, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and you get, let me think about that. I guess just in the role, or as a whole, right? Not in the beginning. Oh, okay. All red flags. They're trying to like shrink the criteria to just find something nice that they can say. And then anything that's a 7 or below is also a red flag. You got to ask probing questions. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example? What about and no matter what rating they give you, you still want to ask the question, what about his performance made you give that score? And what that question will do is it will force them to give you some actual tangible examples, which is going to be very, very important. The second last question is an opportunity for you to investigate a weakness that you may have actually spotted during the interview or an incomplete piece of information. You know, in my interview with Frank, he mentioned that he really struggled with stress. Can you tell me more about that? And then the person that you're doing the reference check with will actually give you a pretty tangible example of how that might show up. Because it's important that you see some more evidence of this behavior. And sometimes in some of the interviews I've done, maybe it wasn't exactly for the Carpenter position, but you get to actually reveal a lot of red flags. And sometimes you might actually reveal a lot of information that shows their previous management or their previous boss doesn't know what the heck they're doing. So that's why their resume looks the way it does. So those are the 6 questions. This last one is my personal favorite. And if you're on a contract in business, construction business, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. Here's the question. Would you pay $2,000 to hire them again? You get a lot of interesting reactions here. The people who are like raving fans will be like, honestly, I don't know about 2,000, but like, I don't know if I have that money on me, but I would find a way to like ask management for it, or I'll try to find a way to put it in his comp plan so that if we do end up hiring him one more time, like we can find the money and make the deal work. That would be like an amazing answer. A not amazing answer would be, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, look for hesitations. But these are the 7 questions that I use to reference check different people. And it's worked great for me. And I know it will work great for you. So if you end up using it, please let me know in the comments what you think. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next.